in the country now.
Yeah. I want to go to Yamiche, but just pointing out that right now, if we had gone with the narrative, or if we were like Fox and echoed the president's narratives of what he thinks were the biggest concerns in this country right now, if it was a week ago, we'd have maybe be going to a reporter on the border about the caravans making their way into this country.
Well, I'm sure Fox and everybody covered the caravan yesterday, right?
No, they don't.
Did Martha go to the border yesterday?
Is the DHS secretary still at the border?
Were they at the border yesterday?
Are they preparing for 15,000 troops?
Alex, are they at the border this morning?
What caravan?
I don't see anybody at the border.
No Fox people are at the border this morning?
But they thought it was such a big story. They thought that our country was in danger. They were placing reporters at the border and doing 24-hour coverage.
Hold on. Did Rush Limbaugh talk about the caravan yesterday, Alex?
It's got to be such a danger to us.
Well, thankfully, I don't listen to Rush all day, so I don't know exactly. But
what about Hannity? Did Hannity talk about smallpox coming up from the border?
They appear to have lost interest, Fox News. Vox reports that it was mentioned just once in passing.
What?
On Fox and Friends.
But smallpox is coming to America.
Wait, I don't understand.
They told us this as news. This is
Yamiche, I don't understand, because this was an invasion that was going to threaten our very way of life. They were bringing leprosy and smallpox up here.
So I'm sure the president talked about that yesterday.
Did he talk about that?
That must have been a primary...
Okay, I think we've thrown the red meat out of
the horse has been kicked. You forgot that.
You get the idea that chum has been thrown into the water. Go.
You got to put it all in context. Go ahead, Yamiche.
No, there was not a caravan that was invading the United States. I had to put that plainly. I will say that I interviewed some Trump supporters who were in a gated retirement community in South Florida who were scared that this caravan was going to come and bring all sorts of diseases to them. These are interviews that I did on camera where people were really, really fearful. And the president essentially feels as though he was validated in running that campaign of fear because Republicans were able to keep control of the Senate and even gain a couple seats. And that's why I posed that question to the president, which is, are you worried that you're emboldening white nationalists? And what we know now is that a white nationalist visited the White House and was tweeting about it yesterday on the same day that I was asking the question about white nationalism.
And he called you a racist. He called you a racist for asking him about the behavior that he is engaged in that has David Duke praising him, right?
He did do that. And I think what was going on there was that the president was very frustrated with reporters overall. Moments before I posed my question, he was pacing, literally pacing back and forth at the podium. I thought he might even walk off because he had been calling people rude, hostile. He was screaming at April Ryan. And I, of course, as you know, because I've been on the show multiple times and you've always allowed me to kind of be myself, I'm not someone who really gets flapped up. I'm not someone who really is confrontational. So I said, okay, if you're going to call me a racist, I'm going to then move on to middle class tax cuts and figure out how you're going to get that done. And of course, he didn't have an answer for that either.
No answers. Rick, I do know this, though, that there were 3 people that went heavy on caravan ads. One of them, Chris Kobach. Kobach and the other 2 that went heavy on the caravan ads, all 3 lost. I mean, it's such nonsense. And Donald Trump ended with that racist campaign. And for everybody out there that was telling me, no, it's a real story, we're worried about the caravan, they're coming, and Trump's strong enough to... I go back to what I said about Martians coming to my backyard. Well, they're not coming.
He talked
and the caravan's not coming. The leprosy's not coming.
No, they're not coming. And the caravan story was just so cynically political. It was just...
But how stupid do you have to be as a voter to believe it?
Or a member
How
of the
stupid
media.
do you have to be today?
Pretty stupid.
Today, when they're not talking about the caravan anymore.
Right, because it's all find-outable on the Google machine, right?
They could have gone on the
look it up.
If they just looked it up on the Google machine like I told them to, Trump was a lie.
He talked about yesterday also, he named all the people that lost that didn't support him. But there were lots of people, like take John Tester in Montana.
Tester was his #1 target.
And I think he went to Montana 4 times to try to beat Tester, and Tester won.
Tester whipped him.
You mentioned Kobach, but there was a lot of people. But the other thing that Trump has got to really be worried about is if you look at Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, there were 6 statewide races there. 3 Senate races and 3 governor's races. The Democrats won all of them. Remember, those were the states that nobody thought that he could pick up those electoral votes, which is how he became president. So you could say that those Rust Belt states rejected Trumpism, and that will be a real problem.
To your
for him.
point about the Caravan, I mean, I don't want to blame people for being stupid to believe it.
You know what? You can.
I
You
do.
actually can.
Okay.
Because you know
Actually,
what?
in the media,
in real time,
I
all
blame
they
those in the media
listen,
who brought it to the people.
It's time to stop giving people a free pass if they are going to make racist assumptions, and they could actually disabuse themselves of those racist assumptions in 3 minutes. Okay? You can't just... These are the people that say, I listen to Donald Trump and I believe him more than I believe members of my own family. That's a sickness, and that's a cult. And thank God we found out on Tuesday that is a shrinking cult.
As I was saying, I think part of the issue here is that you have a media operation, Fox News, but also conservative talk radio, that essentially just amplifies whatever the president's political agenda is to be. And in this case, I think you accurately pointed out, the programming on the Caravan was propaganda. It was political campaign motivated propaganda.
It was state-run television.
It was state-run television. And then you had people like Sean Hannity and Judge Jeanine appearing on stage.
Incredible.
So you have, I mean, any talk about Trump's political popularity has to include mentioning of the fact that he has a media entity that is essentially serving as a campaign arm. And I'm not shocked in the slightest that the programming on the Caravan is stopping entirely on Fox.
By the way,
it was
we said-
never a story.
By the way, we said
it
it
was
was
a
going to.
campaign
Okay.
issue.
One last note on it to make it official. The Pentagon announced yesterday that the military operation at the border where the president sent troops down there will no longer be called Operation Faithful Patriot.
Yeah.
Is it a coincidence that that went away the day after the midterm
incredible.
Well, you know, it
election?
worked.
Doesn't mean the mission's over. It means they're turning down the temperature on it at the Department of Defense.
Here's what troubles me about it mostly is I ask people when we talk about this issue of immigration is, tell me what Nancy Pelosi and Rudy Giuliani have in common. Do you know what the answer is? I'm not trying to set you up here.
No.
They're both Italian Americans, but no one ever thinks of that. And it's given away by their last name. And so we've had this experience with the Irish and the Germans and the Jews and now some reason the Hispanics we're going to fall for this that they're the enemy because one day Hernandez and Rodriguez I'll ask you what they have in common, no one will say Hispanic.
I think
because
there's a lot of accountability, including in the media, that we need to consider here.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.